Hello everyone and welcome back to the Amazon EU Masters. Heretics just won Game 3, so now they're 2-1 up in this semi-finals, and we are at the analyst's desk for now. But I'm going to be breaking down one of the fights in this game, because one of the things we asked Heretics at the end of last game is that, can you actually clean up your play a little bit? It felt like it came down to execution and some of the mistakes they made, and we were gifted that. This was the closest game we have seen so far in this semi-final series, and one of the closest fights, or at least one of the most important, came around the Baron fight when it was traded for the Cloud Soul fairly late into the game. So I thought we may as well have a look over it and see how Heretics went about winning this team fight. So what we notice here is that LDLC are starting this Baron. What's already happened is, you can see, that's already gone. You know, you're not going to be getting that soul at this point, but still, you can see that absolutely everyone gathered into this pit with, of course, DOS just left on the outside. So this leaves Heretics with a couple of options. Now, you understand that playing into a team comp which does like these very big grouped up fights, when you have a Veigar cage, you got a Braum shield, a very, very dangerous prospects. But if you can split this composition and force them on to retreat when they can't stand their ground around this kind of terrain control and area denial, maybe they can find themselves a victory. So that's what they go about doing. DOS immediately blows the shield. The ultimate from Poppy comes out as well, and you're going to see this actually Ragner thrown out of the pit. You can also see that that's the cage down. So that's problem number one gone. Problem number two gone, and of course the shield isn't there either. What this means is that Heretics have a really good window now to start running down without a lot of the things that would normally be stopping them doing damage in the team fight really coming to bear. Ragnar realizes and goes, heck, I've got to get involved in this team fight somehow, but overextends to do it. But the reason he's overextending in the first place is because Heretics have pushed the advantage. They split open the fight, and they end up taking 2 kills for this. LDLC do walk away with the Baron, but this is a really good example of how Heretics actually cleaned up some of what they did in Game 2 and ended up executing better in these team fights to walk away with what was a very back-and-forth game victory.
Thank you, Namira. And I mean, it was a close, intense Game 3 series, but Ox, there's something you mentioned about this series. There's a certain champion in the top lane.
Aatrox does it again.
Hey. It's 100% win rate.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Aatrox has obviously done really well in a lot of the lane matchups that it's had. Did get some pressure onto early from the Darius, but they managed to stabilize that. Pulled ahead in farm, and I feel like this pick is just so influential. You're strong in the team fights. The laner phase has proven to be hard to sort of pin down. And then when it comes to moments like this, where, as you said, tools are unavailable, the typical CC that would lock something like Aatrox in place, he has free reign.
And I think the real big thing there is that you get target access to do that, because when you pop your ultimate and you've got your Umbral dashes as well, people forget about the mobility of what Aatrox has. If he gets an opening where there isn't Veigar cage up, or there isn't a shield blocking you from doing some of your damage, stuff like that, he actually reaches his targets fairly quickly when the opening arises. And when you have players as experienced and as high level as Aibo, as Ragnar in this game, you can see how important it is that this champion can just press the go button and capitalize.
So now let's bring it back to the start of the game, because the start of the game looked pretty solid from both ends. I mean, even more solid on LDLC side, because, you know, where bluerzor's like, yeah, I'm gonna go for the ganks. Yike's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna farm up and just fight the 2v2s.
Yeah, and given some context here, 3 camps have been done by bluerzor at this point. He had 12 CS. He was really far behind, and it kind of felt almost desperate for the plays he was going for. And Yike just kept doing a fantastic job of denying him camps, contesting on any of these aggressive plays, and it really looked positive for LDLC at the start.
And where all of this started for Yike was actually what we saw in the kind of the pre-show. We're saying, like, actually in the mid-jungle in the quarterfinals, very good at taking what was an awkward play and then capitalizing into an invade to put down vision. This time it was a dive bot, which works out for Heretics, but Yike immediately goes, all right, I'm invading, gonna steal red, gonna steal raptors, then gets the ability to go contest on his own raptors as well, taking 2 camps away, secure your own. That leads into the top play gank as well. Yike takes 1 play and makes things very difficult for bluerzor after that point. And that's why the early game was not all Heretics sided. They actually had to fight from an early game difficult scenario.
But then there comes this pivot point, I'd say somewhere around mid-game, Ox, is where Heretics slowly is starting to take over and the Draven is starting to pay out.
Yeah, I feel like the execution in some of the fights was pretty stellar, but also I feel like one of the big issues with the composition that LDLC had was it was often difficult for them to start a fight on their terms, just because of the fact that with a Karma, you can AoE shield everyone, give them that movement speed, disengage, and there isn't really that many hard engage tools. Like, you see DOS trying to make things happen on this Braum, but other than just walking at them and hitting a Q, what more can you do?
And when you combine the fact that there are less engaged tools, very, very relevant, and the game has gone late enough that your mid laners are doing damage, this game looks vastly different than the two we've seen before. It wasn't a one-sided stomp. This was a back and forth. It was about teamfight execution. It wasn't a roller coaster in terms of like immediately dropping off the cliff. This was much more plateaued up until we got to the late game fights, where of course Heretics eventually pulled ahead.
I mean, it's also the first time we actually see the mid laners, you know, doing their part.
Yeah, I mean, they had an opportunity to start to flourish in this one because we've seen just a lot of neutralization come in. But I feel like a big thing that has to be mentioned is that we'd eventually get the Cloud Soul coming in.
Yeah.
You know, often people are critical of Cloud Soul, but here when you're lacking...
Jamada isn't.
Jamada isn't. But when you're already lacking
here.
engaged tools, when movement speed is so pivotal for things like Darius, like Aatrox, Karma as well, given the AoE movement speed, it just felt like there was no way to really catch them out because they could just walk away and they were walking 15% faster. And I mean, part of that is obviously we saw Yike have a fantastic early game, but the early pressure bot did mean that Heretics were in a position where they could lean into those dragons. They secured those first two, and then were able to snowball from there.
I mean, if we just look at throughout the entire game, I mean, as eventually as Heretics would take down the game, but I don't feel like it was an easy task to do so. So for me, it's kind of, you know, maybe jumping a bit ahead here, but Game 4 looks really tense for me.
No, this looks really good now because one of the things that we were described about Heretics, the likes of Noah, who came on the broadcast as well from the LVPs and as a caster over there. Yeah, that one over there. But was that Heretics were very much this explosive early game team. They're very used to playing through early games, snowballing very hard. Yeah. They didn't get to do that this game, and they still managed to win. We've seen a couple of teams now manage to evolve past what we thought of them coming into this tournament. And this is a very important step forward for Heretics if they want to keep rolling forwards.
Now, if we just take a look at the post-game breakdown, I think it kind of tells how this game went. And it was, you know, slow but steady, I would say, Ox.
Yeah, a bit more of a build-up in this one before we finally got to the point where Heretics could leverage the advantage. But I mean, in particular, look at the damage comparison in the mid lane.
That's ridiculous.
Kind of insane, if we're being honest. 44.2k. The Veigar just wasn't really able to find that many windows in and get too much good target access.
And compare that to the first two games. Actually, both of those games, even in the win, Zwyroo wasn't necessarily the big game-changing factor in it where he's doing all the damage, putting everything on his back. We've now had one game of bot lane being the determining factor. Then second game, actually it was top lane with the Aatrox being the determining factor. We're kind of doing the round trip across the rift now. Mid lane finally getting its time to shine. I myself as a mid laner do very much enjoy that. And that Viktor was so huge impact.
Next game's jungle. Yeah,
support maybe for game 5, you know?
No, let's get Zwyroo and Brand.
No, but talking about Zwyroo, talking about these mid laners, you know, it feels like they're the silent carries. They haven't shown much. They haven't been able to, as you said, you know, it's two games that one was 23 minutes, the other was 24. Now they actually get to show. I mean, I don't know what to expect from Game 4, but I do kind of feel like if this is a momentum sort of thing, Heretics are looking good.
Well, I mean, LDLC is still very adaptable. This is not a team which you can write off. This is a team which are the LFL champions. They have so much best-of-5 experience over the course of this year. Never take this team lightly or take them for granted. I expect them to come back with a counterpunch in this next game.
So I'm not completely sure what LDLC has chosen yet for side, but I'm going to say they're probably going to end up on the red side. Or maybe on the blue. I don't know. Maybe.
There's two choices. It's one or the other.
Yeah,
so
it's 50%. Okay, so I just got confirmed that it is the blue side.
Oh, okay. All right.
Expectations for that next pick and ban?
You know, I favor blue side, having cast the LPL where it's like a 60% win rate. I think it gives you so much more space with your bans. You can start to prioritize some of those big power picks.
Things like Aatrox first pick.
Or you're forcing the opponent to ban it. Aatrox's potential. I think it gives a lot of advantages. And ultimately, as much as lane matchups are obviously important, there are certain picks where you can just kind of not really recognize any good counters, like Aatrox, where, you know, whatever we've seen thrown against it hasn't worked too effectively.
Is it maybe an idea to go for counter pick mid? I mean, I want to look at Zwyroo's stats. I mean, his gameplay from Game 3 just showed like how important he can be.
And the main thing for me is like looking at this and going like, oh my...
41.8%. Sorry.
I actually didn't get a chance to see these stats before that. That is ridiculous.
Quite a lot. Quite a large number.
Yeah, but like, how?
I mean,
that's ridiculous.
We talk a lot about top lane. We talk a lot about bot lane. We don't really mention mid lane that much, but you know, seeing this.
That's crazy. Now, the thing for me, particularly in mid lane is much less about, actually much like the rest of the lanes, it's more about the power pick than the counter pick for me. I think particularly in mid lane, it's more about your mid jungle, and actually mid jungle and a support which can roam there as well. mid lane isn't really a 1v1 role anymore. You're going to have people in your lane, but when you have someone like a Viktor where you know the game is going late, that's the most important thing. It's more about having that ability to impact it. And particularly in playoffs so far, we've seen less early game mid laners and more of the scaling come through for the damage potential.
I'd be interested to see if LDLC maybe go in a different direction on this one because, you know, we've seen that if they pick someone like the Veigar, wasn't able to match the impact of the Viktor in that game, but maybe what we saw and what we talked about at the start of the day with things like the Ahri, like the Talia, having that early impact and leaning it towards your side lanes because, you know, we had the time to see what the Viktor could do, but if you end the game in 23 minutes, the Viktor doesn't matter.
No, I mean, you don't really get to a point where you actually play the game. Something we didn't really talk about all too much, and something I find worrying in a bit, is the fact that Yike got his Viego, something that's been a staple pick for him, but he wasn't able to close out the game. And I kind of wonder, though, is it all on Yike? Is it all on top lane? Where do I look for when I see the Viego on Yike's hands and not being able to win a game?
Well, but where have we heard this conversation for? Was this like a Draven that should have been dropped for this game as well? It feels like a similar conversation, right? When it's like, you see a pick and you can understand why it didn't work in that game and you have questions of it. But for me, it is so much an execution, particularly in this game above so many others as well. These comfort picks, they do mean a lot to these players and you can see what they can do in the good and the bad.
Ox, yes or no? Are we going to get a 5th game after this, or is Heretics closing it out?
Ooh,
yes or no?
I think yes. I think blue side should allow them to leverage the advantage. I think LDLC in a position to answer back.
Well, let's go. I'm sticking with the prediction. LDLC to game 5.
2-1 for Team Heretics, and they're about to crash the LFL party and advance to finals. Before that, they need to win one more game. Let's give it to our casters for game number 4.
Pleasure to be back. And what a game we have ahead of us. Heretics are 1 game away from knocking out the LFL first seed, from making it to finals, the first finals the LVP has been to since 2019, and looking to bring down this massive French empire that's been running for 3 straight Amazon EU Masters. Still need to take down LDLC to do it, and this is an LDLC that maybe having some fears in the back of their heads now.
Also, LDLC came in as the prince that was promised after Karma Corp didn't make it. The 3-peat from Karma Corp gets broken, but LDLC was supposedly here to inherit whatever K-Corp left behind. The LFL supremacy is supposed to continue. BDS Academy are already waiting in the finals. They're looking for that all LFL showdown, the revenge for the LFL finals, if you will. And LDLC right now are looking shaky. They are looking like they can actually bleed. Can they be taken down, though? Because Heretics, even though they have got 2 in the bag, let me remind you, the Dusty series went the exact same way. Dusty kept hitting first. LDLC dealt the final blow, though.
It's the big question now, right? How sturdy are LDLC? Realistically, taking a loss like that is going to feel rough. And I was talking with Sam right here.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Hello, buddy.
On the way back to the green room.
They talk to me occasionally.
You know, to sort of close out some of the narrative stuff about how, realistically, LDLC, we pegged them as the team fighting team here between these 2 teams. Heretics just out-team them in game number 3. So what is the angle of attack now for LDLC? Do you try and go back to something team fight? Do you try and at the very least give yourself more engaged tools so you have options in the mid game? Do you try and match Heretics in their own early game?
Tell you what, we can find out because Champ Select's ready. Let's head on in.
Okay, there you go. Let's go.
Thank you, Sam.
You're very welcome. Thank you, production, for setting me up for that one very happily. Trouble, what do you want to see from this Champion Select? Because honestly, that game, for all that it went in Heretics' favor, was a tense affair.
Yeah, it was very scrappy from both teams. They were lacking a lot of the easy engage tools, if you will. And I think I would like to see ease of execution coming in from both teams, actually. If you want to come and get it, things like Nautilus, Ornn, Sejuani, things that can force engages really easy. Finally, this thing is going to be out of our screens.
Thing is the right word.
Thing, yeah. And you know, for me, the next also question is, what is the priority going to be like for Draven on Heretics? Because now, you know, are they still going to keep at it for LDLC? Do they want to ban it away as well? Is that something that's on their mind at the moment? Because it feels like it's also been a bit of a supplementary issue that they've had to deal with.
Quick note as well to both my analysts. This is a spot of sides for the first time this series. Heretics are on the red side. LDLC will have first pick.
Azir is not banned yet, and if it doesn't go get banned here from Heretics, also Aphelios. Heretics have to choose between Aphelios and between the Azir to see which one they want out the picture, or they bounce off the third and then the handshake.
I think maybe if that's your angle, I wouldn't mind it. But then what would you take first as LDLC? What do you prioritize more? I would have to imagine it's the Azir, right? I mean, Heretics are very clearly thinking about this. They're going to ban away the third. I mean, Yike was giving everybody problems on that Viego, so I don't blame them.
With it.
I'm gonna be very honest here, even if I see an Ahri first pick, I wouldn't be sad. I feel Eika has been having an extremely quiet game. The mid-jungle duo that we praise so much between Yike and Eika hasn't necessarily come into fruition. I do like the early game aggression with the Wukong being locked in for Yike right there. Now give me a really strong mid laner, a LeBlanc, an Ahri, something that can brawl together with that Wukong in the early game.
I mean, the Wukong is just behind his ear and the Sejuani as far as priority for these teams, often banned away. And Yike couldn't quite make it work on the Viego, get a little bit more team fight setup than the Viego, which is a bit more of a single target person. Instead, we're seeing the Ornn. We might see the Azir as well, which is such a deadly duo. If you can get to 1-2 items and start team fighting, you know what you can do with that.
And you know what? That's the perfect way to set it up, Sam. I mean, Heretics are just looking to team fight from the get-go, from this R1, R2. They're saying, LDLC, you know what? Sure, we've had the upper hand in some of the early games, but we also feel like we've just out-team fought you in Game 3. Let's go for it here in Game 4.
For the love of League of Legends, take Aphelios away from Heretics right here.
You know,
because if it's Ornn and Azir and Aphelios, you've pretty much won the draft right here fully.
Is this okay though? Because now you know you're going to run into Draven. I guess the only issue for Heretics at the moment is they have to pick between their AD and their jungle. I feel like they're more likely to go towards the AD slot out of the two.
I feel like Aphelios is much better than the other options that they have shown. Yes, the Caitlyn does outrange the Draven and you can neutralize, but she was stuck underneath the tower. With the Aphelios right here, you can actually get priority in lane with something like an Inferno.
Exakick's Aphelios is legendary. It's his most played champion of all time, 36 games on it. He's got an 80% win rate. He had been undefeated at the tournament, in fact, pretty much this entire year on the champion, until last series. It is so comfortable for him. Right. It's Doss's Rakan with it. It's down to the wire. He pulls out the comfort. It's dangerous in the current meta, but it will be into Jackspektra's Draven.
Now my question is, Eika has had a pretty quiet game, but he has pulled out the Varus. And Caps pulled out the Varus into Larsen's Azir, which forced Rogue to permaban that Varus when Larsen wanted to play Azir.
I mean, Eika played AP Zeri mid, so he's the kind of player who would do it.
Yes.
But do you do it in a Game 4 where you're about to potentially be eliminated?
Can you afford not to?
I guess that's the big question, right? I mean, LDLC to me seem like the kind of team this deep into a series that will take the more stable option, but at the same time, if you want to try and catch Heretics off guard, I feel like it would kind of be the sort of pick you would want to lean on. Varus also kind of more of a lane counter, but also kind of does a pretty good job into Draven, just because you can outrange him. But also because if he's just sat in mid lane or attacking with the axes, you always know where he's going to go, so you can just send out the Chains of Corruption. It's a very easy target to land on. Heretics going at, you know, kind of lane counters to what they have in both solo lanes right now. Personally, I don't like Kari, but, you know, I'm sure Nightmare in the back room cringing at that.
It's an Eika special.
It's an Eika special though, right? And LDLC just going towards two junglers that they don't want to have to deal with because they've already got their Wukong locked in. The next option maybe be...
I think you want Jarvan.
Yeah, Jarvan would probably be the next best thing.
Jarvan's been on it.
And now they can just very happily sit here, go towards bluerzor's champion still. I think maybe you're looking at Xin Zhao if I had to take gander at it.
Bad shout. I mean, if the Poppy's banned, I was about to say Poppy would be good, and I realized it's actually been banned, so I can't actually use
I feel like right here, you take your support, either Leona or Nautilus, do pretty well into the Rakan. You can lock down the Rakan and actually progress. This I like! This I like! Because next to the Draven, you've put a kill support in lane. So if DOS overextends on that Rakan, there is kill potential coming down from the Jackspektra.
Do it.
The true damage.
If this goes down, I like it. It's something like a Varus, like a Xerath, something that can outrange Azir and perma shove him in lane, which will then allow Yike the freedom to roam them up and actually try and make plays.
There it is. Yes. Let's go. And I mean, just thinking about the follow-up, right? For me, even though Rakan, not the best champion inside of this meta right now, typically a lot of enchanters, I think the amount of setup that you give to this Vel'Koz from Cyclone plus that Rakan follow-up could absolutely be huge for finding snap engage team fights.
Do you Nocturne this? Because Nocturne,
yes, you do.
Nocturne plus Ornn plus Immobile mid and bot lane.
I guess kind of what Semi, but I feel like the Nocturne would have had so much just, I mean, it induces paranoia.
What I'll say though is considering how important the early game has been, Vi is more useful pre-6, and considering how much both teams have looked to ensure invades are happening, I can understand why Vi might have been the option. A little bit safer, a little bit more fighting, but two drafts here. One for Heretics is a bit more stable in the current meta, but has a lot of their comfort on the other side. We asked for something a little bit more special out of Eika. It wasn't the Varus. It is that Vel'Koz, though.
And more importantly, both teams have a bunch of engage and disengage. When it comes on the side of Heretics, you've got Leona, you've got Vi, you've got the Shuffle from Azir, you've got the Ornn ult, which is one of the most perfect engages because it's not committal. You can just pop it, you don't have to be in anyone's face. You're out of danger. On the other side, you've got Ragner on the side, you've got the Cyclone from the Wukong, you've got Rakan engaged as well. There's so many tools on both of these teams. This game is just about to get so freaking bloody from the get-go because this is going to be the first time for Heretics where that bot lane prio will not be theirs.
What I sense right now is a game that is not going to be as slow as game number 3. I think as far as the lane matchups go, I look at Heretics and I say you've got agency in just about each lane. How are you going to use it? I think after a couple of levels, Yike will probably start to take over a little more autonomy there, and that's probably an angle that
dramatic zoom-in of the Vel'Koz.
There you go. I mean, it's a pick you don't get to see often.
I mean, it's such a weird pick in the sense it takes such a lot of work to master the champion, and it really is often left as a kind of niche counter pick. We've known for years that people like it into Azir. Very few pros have pulled it out because it does take a little bit more work to get to the mastery point on it. Ike has decided this is the time, this is the moment. Will it work, though?
Also, pulling something like a Vel'Koz into Ornn, Vi, Leona.
It's risky.
Your positioning is going to have to be nothing short of stellar because you misposition, you step too far forward, you get caught by any of these champions that have so much to see in their kits, you're most likely going to end up going down. So, right here, when it comes to engage and easy access tools to the backline and to start in the fight, I think Heretics have more than enough for themselves.
Lethal tempo match both AD carries, but important to note, it's the Comet, of course, for Eika, no real surprise, but he has gone towards the Ghost second. I think like another summoner spell or something like a spellbook, which I suppose you could do on the Vel'Koz, wants the additional mobility to try and stay alive because a Vel'Koz without a flash is a very gankable target. And you look at the amount of CC. The level 1 wards come down. They've been so potent for both teams when it comes to scouting out what's going on in the enemy jungle and setting up for those invades.
I really want to highlight this yet. DOS, I think, just about gave the XP to both Eika and Exakick. So Eika's going to have level 2 first on the wave in mid lane, and that could definitely play a bit of a part in how things could play out there.
Also, real quickly, this is the first time that the LDLC bot lane should have priority down bot, which means that Yike, for the first time this series, is pathing towards them. He actually wants to meet bluerzor towards that bot side of the map because he should technically have his bot lane pushing towards that bot side, but because whiteinn moved in.
Here we go. Level 1 play, but they've got a battle down to try and keep Exakick alive. Takes a bit of a chunk, but won't pop anything more for now. The health par lead, though, for Heretics, and that might actually allow the level 2 early.
The fact that whiteinn sneaked himself into the third bush forced Exakick to not step far forward to try and hit the caster minions at the back, which allowed Jackspektra the perma-shove onto this wave, which allowed them to hit that level 2 first after the next, there you go, after the next minion dies. So very well played by whiteinn right there to get that priority in the bot.
Yeah, and Yike's even skipped his wolf camp because he saw what was going on down here and is maybe anticipating bluerzor to be here for the crashed wave or something along those lines. You can already see the defensive ward above the blue buff tower by the Tribrush just to get early scouting.
He's going in, he's already pinged it.
You can already see, bluerzor is making his way towards the red buff, expecting that Yike was potentially going for a full clear. Really smart from Yike to just to adapt his pathing to what's going on the bottom side. However, it looks like this play is still going to go down and all of the vision is here, and they should have a sneaking suspicion of whereabouts Yike could be. He's going to walk over the wards now, however, and Heretics just have complete control of the bottom side of the map.
They don't have a wave though, so LDLC should technically feel safe playing underneath their tower.
They're thinking about at least trading on some of those Krugs. Won't quite happen here. That one ward over the wall, doing a fair amount to keep some of the vision up, and Jackspektra is actually the one that's being donated those small Krugs.
Pretty nice. Don't mind them. 13 gold a pop, a lot of XP. Very solid stuff from Heretics, though, just to put the pressure down onto Exakick and DOS, winning out on that level 1 and just leveraging the pressure there through bluerzor. That's going to also just kind of amount to a small jungle lead as well, picking up the Krugs on the bottom side, also the Skull Crab down there. In the mid lane, however, Zwyroo is getting the better end of this mid lane matchup right now.
Mind you, there's a ward bot side, sorry, initialized, but it's not going to spot bluerzor coming in.
Potential moment. I was about to ask about the mid lane and the massive damage the Viktor did last game for Zwyroo, but bluerzor decides that maybe there won't be time for that, looking for potential dive. That's why I'm thinking about roaming, and Is it being called off? They're thinking about it. Just look at that bot lane. The Vi just hanging around still.
Oh, they're looking for the monkey instead.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That, you'll notice bluerzor started rather with one pot rather than the refillable to allow for the control ward at level 1, offering so much value in terms of knowing what Yike is doing. I think now we do have a little bit more time. Production, if we could pull out that graphic. Zwyro's Viktor last game was nothing short of extraordinary.
45k damage, if I remember correctly.
That is obscene.
So, his damage percentage is absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Because I was looking through these AD carries, and these AD carries were doing about like 27% of their team's damage. Now that I see it, I understand why the AD carries percentage of damage was so low. Because when people like him pop off on picks like Viktor that scales so well into the late game, gets so much poke and damage down into these late game fights, this is how you buff up your damage percentage numbers. And he was a pivotal factor as in why Heretics were able to pull off that last game.
And you know what champion also deals a lot of damage? Azir, when he can basically hit everything.
I thought you were going to say Aatrox, but...
it's banned. It's not here.
It's banned. It's not here anymore. I think both these mid laners honestly set up for a lot of success here in these team fights, right? I think Eika has the ability to always have setup around him. You just got to make sure he's playing around the engage tools. And as for Zwyroo, again, just being able to always hit something, always as well, to disengage into more follow-up damage is always going to be so key. And I mean, he's just winning the lane continually right now. Yeah.
And there's also 3 things that are sure in this life.
Oh, yeah.
Death,
taxes,
German taxes, and bluerzor playing bot side.
Yeah. What's also apparently going to be on that list is an attempted gank from DOS, but will not quite land. Zwyroo, though, whether we pop the flash did indeed, so we'll be down the summoner. Potentially a deadly thing to do when level 6 coming up for this Vel'Koz relatively shortly, and Lifeform Disintegration Ray does make Azir's life pretty challenging.
Yeah, it does. Just being able to sometimes toss out the cooldown just for the sake of chunking out the Azir, just because, is always very, very powerful. And again, remember, typically Azir used in a facet to always secure mid lane priority. Eika on this Vel'Koz can always turn that one around.
But DOS has already... DOS. whiteinn has already backed, and he's heading straight towards that dragon area. They're going to make sure that they put down their vision. I think Jackspektra, if I'm not wrong, he's probably taking the Scuttle Carp. That's just respawn.
Yep, indeed.
Cash in a little bit more, which means that now DOS is a little behind of the play. Leona already has boots. She's got a health crystal right there with her as well. She's bought a new control ward to put down into this bush. So whiteinn right now is at a pretty good position to try and play towards that bot side of the map. Potentially pull down your jungler who's clearing the tops of the map. He's gonna end up towards that bot for bluerzor, very close to level 6 as well, and try to get that tempo worth from your Leona.
Yeah, I mean, after how much work the Dragon got done in the last game, the priority on it wouldn't feel too bad at all. And again, Heretics, for me, the easier to execute engage tools, right? I think for LDLC, it's always going to be about finding angles sometimes. I think the fact that you don't have, you know, your press R and we are going in button per se is always going to feel a little bit difficult. But Heretics, I love what they're doing right now. You can even see Zwyroo just moving down towards the bottom side a little bit, just in fog, places down a ward. That's all he needs to do. bluerzor is probably going to path through mid, though he's at the very least going to hang around here and see what he can find.
Blue buff handover was coming through. bluerzor just seeing whether there'd be an angle to get a hold of that Vel'Koz. Not going to happen this time around, and it's another relatively quiet early game. Literally the moment I talk about it, there's a cleanse force Exakick alongside a flash. They're going really hard for this. Jackspektra looking to cash in. First part of the 2v2 going to Jackspektra's Draven.
Beautifully done right there. We said how whiteinn had the tempo. He had already gone back. He had the health crystal. He was looking to take this fight. That 1 HP crystal meant that he could go further deep into this 2 versus 2 and take all the damage for himself. They blow both summoners on Exakick. They cash in onto Jackspektra. What a wonderful early game again for the bot side of the map of Heretics.
And the ramifications already coming in across the map. bluerzor takes away the red buff. Could have even gone towards the Raptors. Decides, no, I'm going to go through mid, hit level 6, and now they're actually going in towards the Herald, which was going to be the cross map for LDLC. Again, this replay here, really nice from whiteinn. Just goes in, the cleanse, and waits for the ignite after that, so that doesn't get burned away. Jackspektra says, oh, nice, I can chase down. The initial Daybreak stun comes in, and it's just an easy cash in. 400 the gold. Oh, that kill, not too shabby at all. And now, Heretics make it through to the top side map when they're on Herald.
Also,
Jack was forced off.
whiteinn is ahead of the play again because Exakick died in the bot lane. That meant that you can allow Jackspektra to sit in the bot lane alone, which allowed whiteinn to roam through mid all the way to the top, secure the Herald with numbers advantage for the side of Heretics. Beautiful macro through these fights, and Yike is on the wrong side of the map.
Doesn't get out with the clone, but has a blast cone that spawns conveniently to get him out of danger. I was very nervous when that blade landed.
Yeah, the Rift is French, apparently. They're home territory.
Hang on, how does this work?
I mean,
Paris over the corner there?
yeah, just,
Blast cone, paid actor.
Yeah, paid actor.
Does that make mid lane tower the Eiffel Tower? Is that how this works now?
Good
It was in game 2.
Alright, so I think the next big question realistically is where Heretics going to put this Herald, right? With Jackspektra already being ahead 1-1, not just in gold, but also it just feels like in pressure with this Draven pick, you'd expect bluerzor is just going to end up down there at some point. They're going to chuck all their odds at the summoner spell-less Aphelios and just take the whole damn tower and look for a snowball.
I raised you game 3 though, where the Draven got 1,000 gold ahead and then had that flip right back and then right back again, and we sort of played seesaw.
I'll raise you.
Oh no.
Again?
It's this kind of game, is it? I see.
Easy engage buttons to the likes of Leo, Navai, Azir, and Ord. So I think Jackspektra will have a lot more fun sort of running down his opponents with a lot of these CC tools that Heretics are running in this game. And you can see how now this Draven is extremely dangerous. He's holding a call. He's already cast in. He's 1k gold up. And what Heretics can very easily do is just play again through their both side of the map. Force these fights into these very small choke points where Azir's going to be able to put down the soldiers. You're going to have the Whirling Death coming in from the Draven to do a bunch of damage. And you don't necessarily have to kill anyone. Just dissuade the situation and push LDLC away. Commit to the objective.
Quick bit of housekeeping. Remember, bluerzor's got that Herald. Dragon spawns. Might well be using that shortly to cash in somewhere and buy some tempo and gold before they head over to that dragon. Instead, they'll look for the engage onto DOS. Solar Flare matched with the quickness.
Goodbye.
But Jackspektra cashes in for a second time. 2-0 on the Draven.
Yep, that's how easy it is for the Draven right now. You see champion, you engage champion, Draven cashes in. 2-0, 500 gold came through this kill. You're gonna cash in onto the dragon as well. Heretics are having a fantastic early game, and if LDLC fall behind and cannot tank until that late game where your Vel'Koz is gonna be dealing a lot of damage, when Aphelios with Moonlight Vigil can break open an entire team fight, Heretics are looking like they've got the upper hand here.
And I mean, we asked the question coming into this game, would LDLC feel comfortable being 2-1 down? We've seen it already this playoffs. This time around, however, the song feels different. It's Heretics with a much more commanding lead in comparison to what Dusty brought out in that 4th game. And to me, at the moment, Heretics just feel like they're playing on a different level, a slightly higher level of tempo, where they're very happy to just continually throw bodies at plays, whereas LDLC, they're waiting for spike moments, I suppose, because, I mean, you're looking at Aphelios and that Vel'Koz scaling, they're not going to be online for so long. You would like to potentially utilize the Yike and DOS potentially, but it feels like they just haven't been able to so far, and LDLC are just continually on the back foot.
Nice attempt there from Heretics. Doesn't quite work out, but DOS is here. I don't know whether he wants to be. Does miss out on that dodge, but look who's over the wall. whiteinn looking to punish. Not quite working out. That battle dance is buffered well enough. whiteinn walks into a decimating smash and decides he does not enjoy it. Ragner continuing to step forward, looking to try this one out. But look at the other side. bluerzor in a 1v3. The life form disintegration. We're doing a lot of work, and maybe Heretics have overstepped over the wall. They're thinking going. Zwyroo chunked out, but flashes that decimating smash using the ultimate now, trying to turn it around. They're still trading. Heretics doing their absolute best. That is such a tanky Scion. Ragner trying to hold on, but massive damage onto Yike. Eika and DOS makes it so tricky.
Exakick's here.
He's here, so you're right. Can they make it work? He's got a full health bar and a moonlight vigil. He can hold them all in place. Wants to think about trading. No one dies and everyone gets out. Just a lot of summoners bone.
Aibo is on the bottom side.
There was also a Rift Tower that was spawned right there.
There we go.
Throughout this whole thing, the Rift Tower was spawned in the mid lane.
This is gonna... there? He's still going. He's on to Eika. Flash over the wall and he'll stay alive. My days, the plays just never end.
What's going on, guys? I'm so confused right now. It's just a complete fistfight.
Heretics are using the fact that very cleverly they rotated Jackspektra to the top side of the map for zero reason. They rotated their entire bot lane towards the top to use that advantage on their Draven with the extra items. And right here, they want more.
We go again. A third kill. Trying to play it out with a Duskwave and an Infernum. But there is nothing being held vigil for. But Exakick's second death. 4-0 to Heretics, and they are looking down a finals appearance. It's looking oh so close. 5,000 gold, not even 14 minutes in the game.
Yeah, and Exakick's failures can be as legendary as he wants, because Jackspektra's Draven is just as legendary, and he's hitting 2,000 gold up, 4 kills. He's gonna take that top lane CS and push down the tower as well. And Heretics have been so clever to rotate their Draven around the map instead of them rotating to their Draven, which did catch LDLC off guard in that topside fight.
And this has just been the core strength of Heretics from really just since they've been a team. And so far here at the knockout stages, it feels like they've just been on another level again.
They're
I'll
like,
say it once
why
more.
have these guys not reset?
Why are they here? Like, you need to die. You shouldn't be here. And it just feels like there hasn't been a consistent or solid answer brought out from LDLC to the fact that Heretics are so good at utilizing their strongest member, in this case Jackspektra, on the map so frequently. The cross maps haven't been there to at the very least try and trade away some gold, because it's always Heretics that are just throwing bodies, and Exakick yet again.
Cannot run away from the cease and desist. The vault is broken. And it's Jackspektra that cashes in with the contents. He's a rich, rich man.
Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. LDLC.
Mid lane fell as well with the Rift Herald. Mind you, the mid lane fell with full turret platings going to Zwyroo onto that Azir. He's 1.2k up, his counterpart on the likes of Velkers. And my question mark here, and my question mark for the entirety of this series, is where has Eika been?
I don't know if he'll be here in this place, because Yike is using the Cyclone to chunk out Aibo, but he's so tanky. He's still got a flash. They're trying to get him. It's a 3v1. Finally, they secure a kill, their first of the game. But it feels like a paltry recompense to deal with how much gold has gone down everywhere else on the map.
I do not mind picking the Velkos for Perma Prior if you have a farming jungler, but right here, Yike said, I want to gank, I want to be active, I want to be brawling, and that Velkos Wukong has just not worked, and Heretics are just taking over the entire map.
And it didn't even feel like it got priority in the early game. I feel like Zwyroo was actually just kind of pounding it in the mid lane. And up here on the top side, like you just said, 300 extra gold goes to the way of Jackspektra, now over 3,500 gold ahead. He's almost 4k up.
He just got top lane turret, a kill on Exakick, a cash in on his cull, and a bot lane turret. In trade for a 3-man gank onto Aibo.
I can only imagine what the LVP stream sounds like right now from the caster's point of view, because this is just, it's the first time in so long that the Spanish teams have, or the Spanish region rather, could probably feel a little bit of hope. And right now, 6,000 gold up, 2-1 up in the series. You have to imagine the elation.
A reminder in spring, LVP disappointed. Giants this tournament, somewhat underwhelming as well. Heretics, people were sleeping on them. They came into the quarterfinals and it was like, well, it should be UOL. They should be destroying this. They came out 3-2. They're into a series against the LFL first seed, the team that nearly went undefeated in spring, nearly went undefeated in the LFL this summer, were coming in supposed to dominate the tournament, and they are living up to their namesake. They are the Heretics. They are putting the order, the thoughts, the preconceived notions we had to the sword, and in what a fashion to do in this game. Eika.
Oh no.
Gonna be so afraid. How aggressive is bluerzor feeling? Not that aggressive quite yet.
Okay, you don't want to be giving away any extra gold, but right there I felt like bluerzor was pretty safe, because they knew that the majority of the LDLC members were backing up on the top side.
Oh, cease and desist and a knock-up! And that'll be a kill for whiteinn this time.
Now Heretics, they can just push towards the mid tier 2, take this one up. 18 minutes on the clock.
Yike.
It's a combo vigil! Cyclone onto 4! LDLC! Is this the mode they're looking for? The life force disintegration wave will be stopped. Aibo trying the best he can. So much low HP on bluerzor. Zwyroo throws down the Emperor's Divide. Yike is just about alive, and Ragner is a massive frontliner. Doing an Exakick hopping forward. Crescendo and a Severum misses the moonshot. Zwyroo will have a
he's out.
Flash away. Will not need to use a Shifting Sands and the Conquering Sands. Only one dies, but it was Jackspektra.
That was your best case scenario fight that you could see if you're LDLC. The 4-man Moonlight Vigil in a 4-man knock-up, and Eika getting a perfect. Oh, Ragner is chasing, but there's more members around.
They'll try and knock him up. bluerzor's there, but DOS is coming over. This is so many low health bars. He has used the W, but that's the quickness. And they'll try and bring it down with it, but no. The Vault Breaker keeps him away. So much damage coming through. Jackspektra's respawned. DOS has got a stopwatch, but it will not buy enough time. The timeout's over. And it turns out the referee is playing in favor of Heretics. Massive knock-up onto Ragner, and the Scion will die once more.
Not enough time in the world for LDLC right now, and it feels like they are on the biggest timer you could be on. Heretics are stomping through LDLC in game number 4, and it's just another overstep from LDLC, desperate to find a way back in.
I've just got question mark pings all over the map. I'm like, you cashed in where you took so many summoner spells from the side of Heretics, go back, reset, buy items with whatever in the world you got off of the map, and then try to reset and repeat, try to find again that perfect case scenario where you get so much CC onto members, big ult from Eika, try to bring them down. But it wasn't the case. They overextended. You only have a Rakan and a Scion. How much damage can you dish out? They know that Ivo is there.
Not that much. Yeah, I mean,
did you forget that people respawn as well?
Yeah, I mean it just doesn't make too much sense.
What's DOS here? It's literally record scratch. I'm wondering how I got here with the stopwatch.
You're probably wondering how I got here. Flashback. Like, yeah, I mean, realistically, DOS, Ragnar, you understand the thought process, right? It is just pure desperation at this point, but you can't overstep and just give over more gold that you just about clawed back. But not only that, of course, like you were saying, Trouble, the summoner spells, you could have looked for something afterwards, maybe. And now with that, they lose so much tempo and they kind of just hand it all back to Heretics in full control.
Now, very importantly, I think the best Moonlight Vigil that Exakick can dish out right here is probably going to be with Gravitum, allowing Yike to reach that backline when Heretics are all bunched up might be your chance. That was how it happened previously in that choke point. That's how Yike reached that backline. I feel like Exakick's Gravitum right here, his ult right here, might be pivotal for his team.
Until he hits Infinity Edge, it has to be the utility ones, unless you're really looking at a massive clump. The Baron's being started up because Heretics just know, if you come and check into us, we will stomp you. And right now, I mean, LDLC don't seem to care, they're going for it.
Yike's trying to get the backstab over the wall. Exakick is deleted. The Emperor will stick him in his grave. Yike, though, doing so much work. The life form disintegration wave gets one, but it's not going to be enough because Jackspektra, of course, is Jackspektra. Deletes just everyone. Ragner respawns, and he goes right back down into the grave. His passive means nothing. A flash forward for a triple kill, a Zoe emote, and a Baron to Heretics, who are eyeing a finals appearance versus BDSA.
So close, but so far from LDLC in this team fight. You almost have to feel bad for them, don't you? So much damage finally comes out from the Vel'Koz, but it's just not enough. Exakick is shuffled back in, and there's no follow-up damage from LDLC. Heretics, they're waiting to take down this Baron for Zwyroo, and they're going to get it, and now they can push to look to end the game.
We said the most important thing was going to be that Moonlight Vigil from Exakick with the Gravitum sticking people down on the floor so Yike can have that entry into the backline. And unfortunately for LDLC, Exakick is the one who dies first. And even though there's a bunch of damage coming in from Wukong, there's a bunch of damage coming in from that Vel'Koz, that 6k up on that Aphelios Draven is shredding through even your tanks.
He's over half his team's gold lead, and they're 10,000 gold ahead.
Now, let's look at this again, because of course Heretics want LDLC to run into them because they have so many tools to engage into the fight, but Exakick getting executed instantly. You see how much damage actually Eika was able to dish out in this fight, and that's just the Vel'Koz with 1.5 items. He doesn't have much. And then you can just ignore Ragnar in the backline because he's not dealing too much damage. He's not very dangerous. He's just very tanky, and just decimate everyone else from LDLC that is dangerous. But now, Jackspektra's flash is down. 600 gold bounty on him. Can you find the angle to execute him and start cashing in some gold?
Eyes, of course, onto the Dragon Pit. We'll notice that soul point went down in favor of Heretics. Another win condition online. And you're right. Jackspektra without the flash could be a target, and of course Eika very close to winning that team fight with the massive damage to the life form disintegration rate, but the gold lead's so massive at this point, I just don't know whether it's enough.
Very, very scary there for a second.
I know, I was just wondering.
But Heretics, they're doing a really good job spreading the Baron across the map. 4 on the bottom side, and bluerzor kind of just chilling out in the mid lane because he can always kind of get there relatively fast between the ult and the Q.
Go. Moonlight Vigil goes wide. Big knock up. And the Core of the Forge goal comes through. Knocked over 4 members. bluerzor with a cease and desist. And the Emperor's Divide comes out straight afterwards. Shurima ascended. It turns out it was from Spain. All damn long. Nowhere to go. LDLC crumble. And their run ends here. Heretics are looking down a matchup with BDSA, and it is this close.
And BDSA are gonna have to wait till next year if they wanna face LDLC in a best of 5 to take revenge for their playoffs over in the LFL, because Heretics came to play and take down the LFL.
And just as it was written, the underdogs go forwards. They will take on BDSA, the undefeated LFL team on the other side of the bracket. They joined the LEC this year. Heretics join them next year. It'll be a clash of titans, and they are so desperate for the silverware.
The storyline is writing itself. Heretics are trying to win the highest honor in the ERLs before they are an LEC team. And I mean, honestly, take a bow for not only defying expectations once, but defying them 2 times back to back against the LFL champions, no less.
And I feel like for a lot of these members and the players over in Heretics, Jackspektra, rumored to join the LEC, didn't. Rumored to join KC, didn't. Ended up on Heretics. bluerzor was playing for BDS. BDS joined the LEC, leave him behind. He plays for Heretics. Heretics joined the LEC. He's trying so hard to prove that he deserves, again, that golden ticket to that first class to the LEC.
And I've got to say, sorry to cut you.
No, please do.
There's going to be a lot of celebration for the LVP, but honestly, pour one out for LDLC. Because not only were they, you know, so close so many times, this is going to sting so much for them. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride when it comes to these international tournaments. And it just feels like, you said it earlier, Prince that was promised. And just like Game of Thrones, unfortunately, there was no prince that ended up being promised here for them. It just feels a little bad in the end.
In the Amazon EU Masters, you win or you die. And it was supposed to be sacrilege or perhaps heresy to vote against the LFL. And the LVP first seed Heretics are the ones that prove the LFL dominance can be contested. They will face off against BDSA in the finals. But we have got to take a little moment here before we break it down. So don't you go anywhere. It'll be worth hanging around, I promise you.
Whoa. Hey, let's go. Did they pick Timo?
Destiny on the line, knocked out 100 times. Right back up, we climb, we climb, we climb, we climb. Victory on the mind, all we know is the grind. When we at war, we fight, we fight, we fight, we fight. climb, we climb, we climb, we climb. Victory on our mind. All we know is to climb. When we at war, we fight, we fight, we fight, we fight.
Welcome to our post show at the Amazon European Masters, where the Viego is burning hot as Team Heretics are the heroes of Spain today. Because, you know, they did it. Not only for Spain, but for the entirety of Europe. They beat LFL first seed with 3-1, and they will face BDS Academy in the final on Sunday. What a last game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like 4 games of Draven for Jackspektra, and the final one, he really showed why he's so feared in this champion. Absolutely dominated the laning phase and just became the center point for his entire team.
And real credit to Heretics to sit there and go, actually, no, that second game wasn't due to the Draven being a priority. It wasn't something that they had to get rid of. And as much as there were questions of it, they stuck to their guns, they played it out, they won.
I mean, Team Heretics just looked very good in this case. And I think it's just, you know, how cool would it be if a team that is joining the LEC next year to be winning the Amazon European Masters now?
But also to win it in this fashion as well, where actually they were doubted. I was a doubter. I was actually unsure of them back in the group stage in the quarterfinals.
I think there are still doubters.
And honestly, considering the way that they've ended up playing this tournament, they've ended up having to build. They've seen themselves through their flaws and building on their strengths that they have. For them to win it in this fashion, for me, is more impressive than just the results on paper.
I think the best thing in any international tournament, whether it's EU Masters, Worlds, MSI, is when you see teams develop over the course of it. And, you know, expectations can be set in a certain way going in. LFL's obviously been fantastic for years, and we've looked at them as the consistent favorites, but really Heretics have stepped up massively over the course of this and are well deserving of their spot in the finals.
And you know, whenever we do shows, we have these certain storylines, and there always seem to be the same ones. There's a hometown hero, there's a favorite, but there's also the dark horse. And you know, I hate to give them this narrative, but they are the dark horse in this tournament.
I mean, you can't look at the finals matchup and say that BDS Academy are a team that's going to be a pushover. They're ones which you can overlook. Now, I do think that Heretics have the tools to really take it to them in those finals, but it's going to be a heck of a dangerous series for the Spanish representatives. BDS Academy, they haven't lost a single game yet.
I mean, being real, LDLC was still a formidable opponent, right? As much as they didn't manage to match up to them on the day, there's still that game 2 that they took quite convincingly. The LDLC looked a little bit shaky. Their series against Dusty wasn't the most convincing, whereas BDSA still yet to drop a game, right? They are in finals and they haven't dropped a single game throughout EU Masters. That is a tall task to go up against.
On the other hand, though, Heretics know how to close out this series, apparently. They didn't go for the full 5 games, and I think they look really well. I mean, I'm going to be interested to see how Sunday goes for that final, but to even get more in depth about the final and, how, you know, see how it feels. Jackspektra is here. The bot laner, our Draven enthusiast. How does it feel to play 4 games of Draven?
Whoa. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien. I don't know.
It feels good. I was surprised, to be honest. Most teams have just been perming banning it against us. I played it a little bit in the Spanish league, and kind of both games looked like that game 4, and then teams just started perming banning it versus us.
I mean, talking about surprises, I think one of the biggest surprises, and I think not much people expected, was to see Team Heretics in the finals.
Yeah, I didn't expect it either in some way, but I felt like if we beat Unicorns, I thought Unicorns was like one of the top teams, even though probably people thought they were bad because we beat them. But I thought that once we beat them, and I feel like LDLC, they looked really good in LFL, but they were kind of on a, like, we were on a really big upwards trend, and they're kind of either stagnating or on a downwards trend.
Yeah.
So it felt like things played into our favor, and I think also the meta is really good for us. I think right now, like I can play most of the ADCs that a lot of other players can't play, and most of the matchups. And I think that gives us a big advantage in draft. And I think also we figured out like how we want to draft every lane really good now, and of course that gives a big advantage.
So regarding that series against Unicorns, what do you feel gave you the edge in that matchup to obviously have the upset? And also, what learnings did you take into this series today?
I think it made me really confident in like playing these explosive bot matchups. And I think it was kind of like, I don't know, it's just something about the confidence that everybody on this team has. Like even when we were, like when we lost that game 4 versus Unicorns, everybody was like, you know, running back game 5, 100% we win. And it was the same in this series. When we lost game 2, we talked about what we thought were the problems were, and we're like, okay, we're going to win the next game, so we're going to win the series. And it just feels like this confidence is like built from experience. And like, I think our top laner, Ibo, he's been playing for so long and he's like won so much and been so successful that for me, he was like one of the driving factors of this confidence and feeling like we're actually going to win.
I think Ibo has the most games in EU Masters, doesn't he?
It's pretty close to it.
I think he broke the record.
I think he does.
Yeah, he does now, because I think it was Seiken was closest, but he's obviously not here.
He broke it in the group stage. But so that's a lot of experience, right? So there's a lot of that to bring to the table. We've already talked about that. But in regards to the finals matchup now, looking ahead to it, one of the things which immediately stands out to me is, you know, you had a lot of confidence playing the style that you did today. But it seems like the teams on the other side of the bracket have tried to do similar things to what you've done, particularly in this series, to BDS Academy, playing through explosive bot lanes, trying to put their bot lane behind, but it hasn't worked against them in those 2 best-of-5s. So with that in mind, do you think that changes your approach to that series, seeing how the other teams have failed to do it through bot side?
I think it's mostly about top lane. I think Adam is playing really insane, and the meta really suits him. And I think it's mostly like, if we were to beat BDS, it would be about figuring really good how to draft around top and how to play around top.
A difficult task.
And then, and then playing accordingly, right? Because I think that team, even if you put their bot lane behind, like in the Game Word series, I think the Game Word bot lane got ahead pretty much every game. But if Adam gets a lead, it feels like he just runs away with the game, kind of.
I mean, Adam already has a European Masters title, right? And I kind of wonder for you, Jack, for you personally, you know, seeing all these rumors come around and people were talking about you, you know, joining the LEC and that kind of stuff. I hate to bring it up, but, you know, what would mean it to you personally if you were able to win the Amazon European Masters?
I mean, it would be amazing. I have always kind of been on like teams that didn't perform that well. This was my first EU Masters, and we won in Spain. And I'm really, really grateful for the teammates that I have. And I think they're all like, they surprise me, like genuinely, in how much we've worked and how much they've improved and how much I feel like we're getting to a point where we can win it all. And for me, it would just be like the end of a great year, like winning in Spain, winning EU Masters. After everything that happened in the end of the last offseason, it was like tough to start the next year feeling like I'm still good, because I remember having a lot of conflicting thoughts. Like I wished I was an LEC, of course. But I think at the same time, this year has been really good for me and I've grown a lot. And I think now I'm showing a much higher level than I did before.
I think one of the secrets is having a great coaching staff, and especially since he's Dutch, you know, I have to give Jeeves some praise. You know, quite a big role in there.
Moving along.
So now, as usual, we also have the 1+ MVP, and who would have thought it's the scariest Draven from Europe West? It's you, Jack.
I'm very grateful for that. Thank you for everybody voting for me. I think my top laner is also playing really well. I think Ivo on his Aatrox, just quite 1v9. And I think Danny bluerzor is playing really good around getting bot lane ahead and helping us get through the early game and letting me carry.
Okay, I gotta follow up on that question because I know we're gonna see all of these clips of you now. I'm gonna just completely subvert that. You just said, oh, I was doing so well on Aatrox. Is it Aatrox as a pick which is just problematic though? Because we've seen so many players so incredibly good on that. Do you have any opinions on Aatrox?
I think he's really good on it, but yeah, that champ seems crazy. Like, I don't know, healing so much, can't be killed, wins every lane. Doesn't seem the most balanced, but it's weird. It's like he didn't get particularly buffed. I mean, he got a small healing buff on ult or something, but now it feels like his Qs are aimed instead of skill shots and you can't dodge them. So I don't know what happened, but he seems really strong, yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking notes for Sunday. Aatrox first pick or ban?
Yeah, it's pretty broken, honestly. But I feel like another thing I want to talk about is good in the finals. We spoke with Crowny, and he was saying how he feels like him and Adoti potentially best bot lane outside of the LEC. How do you feel like you stack up against them?
I think we're better. I think...
Just like that. We're better.
By far.
Yeah. I think I can play a lot more champs, and I think I can play a certain carry style that Crownshot cannot. Like these Kalista, Draven, Lucianami, two that I've gotten really good on. And I think that in this series, like for me, I thought Exakick and DOS would be the best bot lane. But I think they didn't really show their best face today, and I think it was a bit due to the draft. I'm not sure. Like for me, it felt weird that they didn't ban Draven. Like it sounds like cocky to say. But I thought they were really good, and I still think like probably it's me and whiteinn, and then Exakick DOS, and then probably Crownshot or Dota, and then probably Innex Camilius.
So you've spoken a lot about other players now at this tournament across the ERLs. So I'd love to actually dig in on this topic a little bit more, because this one's a bit of a wider philosophical weird question. If you could take one part of another team in this tournament that's there, if you could take a part of their roster, a part of what they're really good at, what would you take and why? Would it be another top laner's strength? Would it be another team's way of thinking about the game? What would you take from another team?
And I think considering how good the meta is for Adam, I think having Adam on your team right now makes the game very easy. I think Sheo is also playing really good, but I don't know if I'd have Sheo over bluerzor. I think maybe it's similar. But in terms of support, I think it's kind of equal across the board. I feel like supports, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's that big of a difference maker. It feels like most games are like decided by top ADC and jungle kind of. And then mid and support are just like supportive roles.
Exist.
Yeah. I want to pick your brain on this about the supports in this tournament so far. How do you feel about it?
I mean, I feel like especially because with the direction the meta's gone, you know, when there's a few more enchanters coming out compared to what we've historically seen, like back when Targamas was like holding the reins and he was super proactive and picks like the Pike, like the Nautilus. I feel like it has been a bit of a shift away, because if you are leaning on things like the Karma, for example, it's harder to have an impact compared to when the meta was leading more into being that primary engage with the team.
So now, moving forward, let's have a look at the bracket, because there is only one series still left to play, and surprise, surprise, Jack, you're playing in that. It's the final between Media's Academy and Team Heretics. And, you know, I could ask you what you think is going to happen, but I think I kind of know what the answer is. So I'm going to start off at the couch here. Noya, what are your first feelings looking at this matchup?
Well, we were talking about this in the green room a little bit in terms of how BDS Academy have made their way to the finals and what other teams have done against them and failed to do. And I'm looking now at this bot side and saying, okay, a lot of teams have tried to just blow up in bot lane, but the rest of the map has really been a problem for it. So for me, the breakpoint will be whether our friend here will be able to kind of destroy bot lane hard enough that the extra resources don't need to go down there and actually can stabilize the rest of the map, or if there is going to be some other X factor, just flip the switch, or rather flip the script, and make sure that actually the rest of the map is getting resources over this bot lane.
Might we be looking for a handshake in the top lane, Jack, where Ibo is just like, yeah, you know, just play tanks?
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing is that I don't think you can ever get Adam to just like handshake play a tank. It's like if you pick a tank, he's just going to go his Darius or something like crazy. So like if you can get the handshake matchup versus him, I think you're very happy. But I think the key will be to figure out like how to not let him have his comfort and not let him like play his game. Because I think if he's playing another person's game, or like a more normal game where everybody's playing like Ornn Sejuani, then I think he's not insane, you know.
Ox, I'm going to ask you the question as well. It's like, what do you expect from Sunday? Because, you know, it kind of seems to be is like, okay, the bot lane is just going to be a plain out 2v2. You know, it's going to be gloves on, fist fight. That's going to happen in bot lane. And then it's just, you know, what's topside going to do? I think that's the most interesting part of these two teams.
I feel like it's going to be, I mean, kind of as we suggested, it's about stopping the bleeding on opposite sides of the map. I don't think we're going to see Draven. That's an outright prediction I'm going to say.
Very bold.
Yeah, very bold. But I feel like ultimately, like, investing a lot of balance towards the bot lane would make a lot of sense, just because, you know, as Jack was saying, there's like these picks like the Draven, the Kalista, the Lucian army, where if you get a lead, you can snowball so hard on the 1-2 item spikes through the mid game. So I feel like you could have heavy focus on shutting down the bot lane, because, you know, as much as we saw people try to focus Connie before, I think if you give Jackspektra the momentum like we've seen him be able to lean on, it's not just the fact that he wins lane, it's the fact that the team are so good at leveraging that across the map.
Something I'd like to add as well, Jack, is the fact that it's Heretics' comfort zone. You know, let's be fair, you don't really expect it to win the finals.
Yeah, I mean, we've been underdogs the entire tournament. Even in Spain, it felt like we were the underdogs. Like people expected.
Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, I think it's nice. Yeah. I think it's like you don't feel the pressure that much, and it's also just this like feeling of, I don't know, like people's expectations, like denying people's expectations rather than having to live up to people's expectations.
And we'll have to see. I mean, Sunday, that's when it all comes down. I'm going to thank both of you for today. I mean, the series has been awesome. I mean, seeing you play Draven has been pretty awesome, Jack. Only one match left in the Amazon European Masters, and of course, it's the most important one. The grand final. BDS Academy and Team Heretics looked so strong in this tournament and deserve the title, but only one can take it. Will it be the LVP once again, or will LFL just keep the streak going? Make sure to tune in, because that's it for today. Thank you to everyone, and good night.